Goes back on the chain gang.
Yesterday, as the sun scorched the marathon men of the Kelloggs Tour of Britain, the young Frenchman Laurent Jalabert became the race's new leader. But now he must look forward from Birmingham to the hills of the backbone of England. Hello again and welcome this time to the city of Birmingham. And you know the Kelloggs Tour of Britain now has covered almost 260 miles in the opening 2 days. And it's not just the lead of the Frenchman Laurent Jalabert which is concerning the riders, because the temperatures caused them yesterday to literally bake under the hot sun. They're seeking the shade this morning of the start tent, but yesterday they were screaming out for more bottles of cold water. In the old days, when water wasn't at a premium, people used to come out and spray the riders down, but yesterday, of course, they were passing through an area where there was a hosepipe ban. You know, it's a hard day today, the riders going over the Peak District hills, then onto the Pennines before the descent down into Sheffield. And these hot conditions could favour now the men who are tough and experienced. Men like Robert Miller and Steven Roche, the Tour de France veterans. Paul Sherwin has spoken to them both this morning.
We're going to see you in the front today.
Yeah, I think there'll be guys everywhere today. I'm not going to give them an easy day, so I think we should see a good bit of action today.
If I can get into a group, then I can counter-attack, which I've done the last couple of days, and I'm hoping to be able to do that.
But is today going to be the first big attack by you?
Yeah, a few attacks, see what happens, see how they are.
I think we've seen the dominant riders in the last couple of days. Once the road goes up, you find Miller, myself, Jalabert, who was riding very, very well.
Will you wait towards the end of the stage when it's much more difficult, or will you try and go for a long one?
No, the race starts when we come out of Ashbourne, so the action will be from there.
And so as the riders approach Ashbourne, let's remind ourselves of the overall situation. Jalabert is the leader, Fondriest 5 seconds back along with Phil Anderson, and Steven Roche is 12th at 21 seconds, and Robert Miller is just behind with the same time deficit. This is the course today. As I say, we're now over Ashbourne, but all of the Peak District hills to come, with a nasty one at Heather Sage just before we drop down into Sheffield. And in Ashbourne, 4 leaders contesting the second TV time sprint of the day. Bernie Burns on the left for the Ever-Ready team, and also very close sprint there with Dean Woods from the Stuttgart team. And here's the result. Woods getting the 5 points, Burns is second, and Kim Anderson is third. The other member of this breakaway group is Remmig Stumpf, and here he is at the back, Paul, on Bowling Hill, and of course he's the policeman in defence of Jalabert.
Well, Remmig Stumpf here, as we get a time check on the leaders at the moment. The lead is 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Remmig Stumpf is in this breakaway group at the moment just to defend the lead of Laurent Jalabert. But at the front there, you've got also a rider from the Z team as we go over the top. In first position there is Kim Anderson.
And here it is, Anderson first, Stumpf takes second, Woods third, Bernie Burns fourth. These riders, in fact, breaking clear at the 15-mile point today, and they built a lead now of over 4 minutes on the field. And this is Yogi Muller here from the TVM team heading up the chase, and the TVM boys interested, of course, in trying to drag Phil Anderson back into the action.
Well, that's what they're trying to do at the moment. They're trying to pull the race back together, because that's a very dangerous breakaway group at the front at the moment, because Kim Anderson is one of the strongest riders in the front group. He's also a member of Robert Miller's Z team, and Anderson could be, if he's given enough lead, he could end up winning this Tour of Britain.
So Anderson is the danger man. Here he is setting the pace, the man who's gone out in front to try and draw the sting of the rest of the big names. Look at this, the average speed today, 26.4 miles an hour, and that really is a fast speed, especially with all of the climb still to come. And there's Phil Anderson in second place in this long, thin line, and they're coming back. 2 minutes, 10 seconds, so the chase, largely by the TVM boys, is having its effect. Now, this is the village of Brashington. The 4 leaders are still clear. That's where we are. We're now heading up the climb. There's the blue flag, which indicates the start of a climb in the Tour of Britain. And we're now heading up the hill of Longcliffe Dale. And it's a nasty little climb, this, Paul. Dean Woods is in trouble at the back.
Well, he really is suffering there at the moment. But I think the chase that's been going on at the back, well, Woods, in fact, is suffering a lot because he's gone off the back of this group. the chase that we've got going on at the front here really is going to make an impression on the race today. It's going to be very, very hard. Here's Jogi Müller piling the pressure on at the front, and there'll be a lot of tired bodies in this race.
So Jogi Müller stepping on the pressure to try and bring this race back into contention. This is exactly what Robert Miller wanted, of course, the team to chase his man up front. Let's go back to the leaders. Bernie Burns here now is number 3 in line. Dean Woods appears to have gone. Anderson is still setting the pace, and the gap is down to 1 minute 22 seconds.
Well, 1 minute 22 seconds, and in fact, the ever-ready rider there, Bernie Burns, has gone off the back, so it leaves just 2 riders in the front here now. Kim Anderson setting the pace on the front, and Remmig Stump. Stump obviously still not doing any work, because all he's got to think about is his teammate Laurent Jalabert, who is in the yellow jersey at the moment.
Well, let's have a look back. There's the 2 leaders going up towards the top of the climb. The lone figure in the centre of our picture, that will be Bernie Burns. And Dean Woods is amongst the cars too. 1 minute 8 seconds it is now from the main field, in fact, up to the leaders. 1 minute 18 seconds was the time gap confirmed. And let's have a look back as we sweep down the hill. Unfortunately, the helicopter belies the gradient of this climb. It is a very nasty start to the Peak District. There's the main field, and you can see now, look at the tail of it, how the riders are beginning to slip away off the back of the pack. Up to the top of the climb, and it's still Stumpf happy to allow Anderson his head. Stumpf defending here for Jalabert, his teammate in the yellow jersey. There he is in the centre of the field as we go back down to the chasers.
Well, Müller here still putting the pressure on at the front, but moving into the position now in second place there on the left-hand side. In the King of the Mountains jersey is Robert Miller. On the right-hand side there, looks like Phil Anderson. He'll be waiting to try and launch an attack, because his team have tried to pull this race back together again. Müller on the front, keeping on the pressure.
And Müller indeed trying to keep Anderson in contention, but Miller happy to let him make the pace here while his man Anderson is up front. On the right there we have a rider who's riding very well here, Joseph Holzmann from the Stuttgart team. And look at Miller now having a little dig inside, 200 metres to go. Miller, and Holzmann's taking him on as well, and it looks as though he might even get him, but he's made a mess of his gear change, Paul.
Well, he did make a mess of that gear change there, and it looks as if Miller's going to go over here in actually 6th place it is, but because there are still the 4 riders in front, because Bernie Burns and Dean Woods haven't been caught yet.
And there it is. Kim Anderson first, Stumpf second, Burns third, Woods fourth. The 4 leaders, though, are now split up. Holzmann the best from the main field, but it looks as though Robert Miller is persisting with the attack now. The shadow indicating that 1 more rider at least is with him, and it's Holzmann Paul who's gone with him. So these 2 riders now off in pursuit of the fragmented leaders. And we're heading down now into the beautiful area of Matlock Bath, then it's on towards Matlock. This is a most beautiful part of Derbyshire. And there you can see the riders way, way down below us. They're the 2 leaders. That'll be Stumpf and up front, Kim Anderson doing all of the work still. Stumpf not helping him at all escape the field. And this is the chase group, and Bernie Burns is on the back, so Dean Woods is also caught here, which means that Robert Miller and Joseph Holzmann have come up now. So this is the 2nd group on the road. Behind the 2 leaders, we're on the descent down towards Cromford.
Well, there, Robert Miller just casting a glance over his shoulder to see what the situation is at the moment. Very complicated to try and find out exactly where you are on these roads, because you can't really see what's going on. Here we are with the leaders. Stumpf at the moment sat on the back of Kim Anderson, who by now may well know that Robert Miller is coming up behind him. Anderson takes a look back to see if he can see what's happening, and there they are. He'll probably be able to see the shadow of his teammate Robert Miller.
Well, he'll be delighted his plan has worked, because of course that was the plan all along when Anderson broke away after 15 miles in what was originally a group of 6 riders. Now just these 2 survivors. Stumpf has done no work at all, and remember, he's the rider who won 3 stages in the Kelloggs Tour a year ago. This year he's had to become more of a teammate to Laurent Jalabert. So Anderson happy to turn off the power now, just checking to make sure he can see that white spotted jersey of Robert Miller, the King of the Mountains, and he can, as the riders regroup here, and we're on the outskirts of Matlock Bath. Here's a time check coming up.
Well, you see straight away there as we get the time check, 15 seconds to the main field, but straight away Kim Anderson goes to the front to accelerate and drive Miller along as far as he can to try and get him to the bottom of the next climb, at least in front of the chasing group.
Well, what a lovely change of roles now for Robert Miller, the great domestique of the Tour de France, with Greg LeMond. Now it is Kim Anderson helping Robert Miller into what seems to be a very, very strong position. On the climb again, and already the pressure being applied by Robert Miller, but Holzmann is surprising, Paul. This man is a find.
Well, Holtzman really has given some pain to Robert Miller over the last climb, but now it seems that the roles have been reversed. As we look down there, we saw Kim Anderson, who's done his job for the day. He's really hardened the race up to make it a lot easier for Robert Miller to sprint away on this climb.
So Anderson, the super domestique, is now falling back in the centre of our picture there, back to the main field, which looks to me as though it's been reduced by half to about 45, 50 riders. And this is the rider who's causing all of the problems, with the company for the moment of Holtzman, who goes ahead and takes the prize on top of the climb. Miller continues his rhythm. He'll come straight back up to him. So we still have these two leaders. There is the result. Holtzman gets the 10 points in the King of the Mountains. Miller is second. Marshal Gaillon takes third. From the rest of the field, Udo Boltz and Gerard Rouet of the Castorama Rally. And at the back of the field, there's trouble here for Federico Echeverri. He's got a problem with his bike, and it looks, Paul, as though he's getting a new one.
Well, he's changed that, and you can see how quickly a rider can change his bicycle there. The team manager jumped out. He's putting his bottle in the back pocket there, pushing him away, and it was a slight lull in the field in the race as well. So I think Echeverri will be back into the field quite quickly.
So while he chases behind, we go back to the leaders. Miller and Holtzman ahead of the main field, it says, by 29 seconds. So they're still persistent. And look at this. Robert Miller is trying to shed himself of Holtzman. The first time that we've seen Holtzman in trouble. So Robert Miller is setting off alone now towards the rest of the Peak District hills. And, of course, over the top, it is Sheffield. Join us after the break.
We've always chosen only the best natural ingredients for dolmio, but tastes vary. So now we also make dolmio with extra fresh garlic, extra garden herbs, and extra chunky vegetables. So whatever your taste, there's a lot more to dolmio.
Wait! Tea time shouldn't be square. 'Cause once you've tried round Tetley tea bags, you'll want nothing but a round bag. The flavour circulates in there. You'll want nothing but a round bag, 'cause they can taste to spare. Get the Tetley round bag habit. Don't be a tea bag square.
Oh, we ought to make a record.
Cindy, we've already got a top-selling disc. Get the Tetley round bag habit. Don't you be a tea bag square.
Every bike that leaves Halfords, whether it's 40 or 800 pounds, is inspected by a trained cycle specialist. Then to see if it needs any slight readjustments, we'll even inspect it again or fit accessories. All you need to do is bring it back. Thank Halfords for that. And Carrera Bikes range and fluorescent cycle accessories and Shimano equipped bikes and cycle...
Take home a Gino Ginelli, pasta a Piazza Italia, spaghetti perfect, of course. Italian spice and Italian sauce. Take a Gino home with you.
Gino Ginelli, the pasta sensation.
Gino, oh Gino Ginelli.
Your eyes could melt the hardest heart. They sparkle like the stars. Zabba-doo-dee-doo-da. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. La-da-da-dee-dee-dee. Ba-da-da-da.
Malcolm the Mountie always gets his can. Labatt's and Labatt's Strong.
Welcome back to the very hot tour of Britain. I'm at one of the busiest road junctions along today's route. Now, if this was the world's most famous race, the Tour de France, then all these roads would have been closed off for at least 3 hours before the race came through, causing untold traffic chaos. But the British police are doing it a different way. 10 minutes before the race arrives, a spectacular sponsors cavalcade comes through. Then a team of 14 police outriders begin a rolling closure, clearing cars and blocking off junctions. At this major intersection, queues quickly build up, but they don't have long to wait. The racers are just a couple of minutes behind the outriders. Ahead of them, the next junction is being cleared.
The main problem is oncoming traffic, without any doubt at all. Bearing in mind that our prime objective is the safety of the race people and indeed of the general public. Safety is the key word.
Until 1987, each force handed over the escort duty at its border to the next one. Now, one police team from West Mercia takes the tour through the entire 6 days and through 26 police force areas. Their rolling closure takes the race along in a traffic-free cocoon. But are the delayed drivers impressed?
Beautiful, beautiful. Really enjoyed it.
You don't mind being held up then?
Oh, no, no way, no way, no way. I can get back to work now. Cheers. Thank you. See ya.
So I must say the motoring public and indeed pedestrians as well are very cooperative. And in fact, 99.9% of them obviously enjoy the spectacle of the razzmatazz of the cavalcade, if you like, and indeed the cyclists working terribly hard going by.
One breakdown in the system came on day one when an ambulance moved into the path of the racers, but eventually got through. And so if you get stuck in one of those traffic jams, try and be patient. It shouldn't be too long. And perhaps you'll get a view of the marvellous racing. Well, it's time to return to that now because they're on the way to the finish here in Sheffield, and so now it's back to Phil.
And indeed we are, Chris. In fact, we're running around half an hour ahead of schedule now. We're heading up towards Millthorpe, and the high spot still to come at Hathersage. And look at this, Robert Miller has now got rid of Joseph Holzman, the West German rider who is with him, and he's going for it alone.
Well, Miller's done exactly what he decided he wanted to do this morning. There's a time check, 40 seconds ahead of the Chasers, which is a group of 3 riders. Miller really is doing what he wanted to do. He's blowing the Kelloggs Tour of Britain apart today, taking the race by the horns.
And what a great performance by yet another rider from the French Z team, Roger Lezay, just over a week ago, was cheering on, of course, Greg LeMond to victory in the Tour de France. Robert Miller wasn't in Paris, the only rider who was forced out of the race. Now he's taking his revenge. Let's go back to that group. This is Michel Dernies from the Weinmann team. 2 wins under his belt this year, and this is a good ride by Michel. Leonardo Sierra from Venezuela. The first time we've seen a rider from Venezuela riding in the Kellogg's Tour. And a little bit of a surprise here because he's only 22 years of age and quite clearly a good climber. This is Thierry Bourguignon from the Toshiba team. Again, rather fruitlessly now, Paul tried to hold on to the lead of Laurent Jalabert back in the peloton.
Well, Bourguignon won't give up as easily as that because he'll know that Jalabert is behind, trying to chase and still trying to get back into contention. Miller at the front of the race here, still pushing away on the climb, trying to increase his lead all the time. But Robert here really is piling on the pressure on the climb. He's done everything we wanted him to do today. He's blown the race apart.
And the group behind Robert Miller looks to be completely exhausted. I think that group's down to about 20-25 riders now. And Michel Dernies is making his last chance here to pick up Robert Miller. And this really is his last chance, Paul.
Well, it is because Dernies is a very good climber. Earlier on in the year, he held the yellow jersey in the Route du Sud. And here's Robert Miller. We're getting the time check, 17 seconds. So Michel Dernies is actually coming across the gap. And Dernies has raced in these kind of conditions before. He raced in that race, the Route du Sud, I was telling you about. Very, very hot conditions, very heavy roads.
So he's used to these conditions, but he's got to wait to catch Miller if indeed he catches him, because we're over the top of the climb. Miller gets the 6 points, Dernies gets 5, Bourguignon 4, and Sierra gets 3. So now Miller over the top, 1 climb to come. We're heading for the big one. Now we're looking off the top here of the big challenge of the day at Hathersage, and as far as we can work out, no cycle race has ever come up this climb before. It's an unusual approach into Sheffield, and Dernies has come across between the climb of Millthorpe and Hathersage. So Miller has company, and I would suggest, Paul, he won't be too disappointed at this stage. This, by the way, is Sierra.
We won't be too disappointed at all because it's quite windy out here. It's very open. These kind of hills, there is a lot of wind in, even on a day like this. And Miller will be quite pleased with the help of Dernies, except for the fact that Dernies is on the same time as Miller. And in fact, on the points, if they finish together, then Dernies will be the one who'll take the yellow jersey.
So Sierra there a little further back down the climb, taking a shower, and I'm sure he needs it too. We'll go back up to the 2 leaders, and look at this now, tempo riding by 2 men who are destroying the Tour of Britain field today. They're 70 seconds ahead of Sierra, and they're coming up towards the top of the climb, which we know has a huge crowd on it, and there it is. Just look at the people who've come about 6 or 7 miles outside of the city of Sheffield to see the stars of the Tour of Britain come up. And the two riders are sharing a drink here together, prepared now to take on the whole field together. Sierra is the third man on the slopes, and he is only a second-year professional from Venezuela, so he's far away from the centre of cycling, but putting up a great performance today, a long way away from his home.
Miller and Derny sharing all the work at the moment at the front. They've got a lot to gain by this breakaway. They won't be too worried about what's happening behind. They'll work together and try and get to the finish together and build up a maximum lead.
So Robert Miller building up the points in the King of the Mountains. Michel Dernis has done an absolutely tremendous ride to get across to Miller, who is firing on all cylinders today. Here's the situation over Hathersedge. Miller, Dernis, Sierra goes over third, Bourguignon is over fourth. So the overall situation at the end of today in the King of the Mountains, Robert Miller now has 43 points from Holzman, who is in second place. So Robert Miller looking good now to continue this race in that polka dot leaders jersey. Into the city of Sheffield now. And this is Dernis and Miller going through with 2 laps to go.
Well, Derny's driving on the front at the moment. All the time these riders thinking about the time they've got to build up on the group behind, that's formed behind the chasing group, who'll be trying to get back into contention. There is the chasing group going through with 2 laps to go.
Well, there's 10 riders in this group, and it includes Maurizio Fondriest. It does not include the yellow jersey of Jalabert, nor Malcolm Elliott, who lives here in Sheffield, nor indeed Steven Roche. They are in the third group on the road, and as far as we know, almost 3 minutes behind these 2 riders. Now, if these 2 riders cross the line together today, the yellow jersey will certainly go to Michel Dernis, because although they are both locked together on time, the judges will add up their daily placings and decide who will take the yellow jersey by adding up the daily placings over the 3 days we've had of the Tour of Britain so far. And Dernis is far ahead of Miller on that score. Looking down as we pass the Crucible Theatre there, and now heading round towards the sharp right turn up towards the finishing straight. This is the chasing group. This, in fact, Paul, is the third group on the road with the yellow jersey in it.
That's right. That's the group with Steven Roche in there, the yellow jersey, Jalabert and Phil Anderson. So they've lost quite a bit of time today.
These are the 2 leaders swinging up towards the finishing line. Michel Dernis, trailed by Robert Miller. It's a nasty little climb, this. It could favour Robert. And Robert Miller riding up to the hill in good speed. Dernis tracking him nicely. Just listen to the crowd, and I can hear a bell signifying 1 lap to go, but I do believe, Paul, that in fact the riders should have covered only 3 laps of the circuit, so it looks like they're going out for 1 more lap.
Well, they will have 1 lap to go, because the bell lap indicates there is 1 lap to go in the race, but the riders know this. They know that when they hear the bell, they only have 1 lap to do. But it's interesting to note, and we mustn't forget, that the chasing group behind are 1 lap behind these riders, Phil, so Robert Miller is actually a lap and a little bit in front of the chasing group.
That's correct, because the chasing group came onto the circuit 1 lap and 200 metres after the leaders. And let's go back and see that group. Here it is. This is now the second group on the road. Remember, they are a lap down, but they are picking up, in fact, Miller and Dernis. Despite the fact that they are almost a mile behind, they are coming together for what will be the sprint for the line. Dernis leading round into the corner, Miller tracking him nicely. And look, they've been hit by the main group straight away, and there goes Fondriest in the green jersey, Maurizio Fondriest, who's turning out to be the star sprinter in this race. He's going for the line, but in fact he may not realise it, but he's only sprinting for 3rd place because of the other 2. Watch the rider in white behind the 4th man. On the left is Miller, and I think, Paul, Dernis pipped him on the line.
Well, it looks as if Dernis got him by about half a wheel, and I think the group coming up like that really will have upset Robert Miller, because he was in an ideal position for the sprint, and you could see there that Fondriest thought he'd won the stage.
I think you're right. Fondriest really believes he's caught these 2 riders, doesn't realise he is a lap behind them. He believes he's sprinting here for 1st place. So as he comes over the line, he really believes he's won that stage, but in fact there is the result. Michel Dernis on the left of our picture, just ahead of Robert Miller, will get the stage result. Fondriest is 3rd, Michael Wilson is 4th, and Federico Echeverry is 5th. But there is confusion. Michel Dernis is not certain yet if he's won, or if indeed it is Fondriest. Let's go down to Paul Sherwin.
Yeah, well, I think Michel Dernis won the stage by about half a wheel from you, and that puts you both in the same time, and Michel Dernis in the jersey on points. But has it been a good day for you?
I don't know about that, because we were only meant to do 3 laps and we did 4. And on the what was the last lap for us, I crossed the line first. So maybe I won. It's up to like what the commissaires are going to say with the rules. It's hard to say who's won already. So we'll have to look at the rules and see what happens.
How was Dernies? Were you surprised when Dernies came back from behind?
I was glad when he came back from behind. I was suffering a little bit out there, man. I was hoping that somebody was going to come. It was just a pity, like he was faster than me, and like we're both in the same time, so that makes it a bit difficult for the what's to follow. Like maybe today was the hardest day. We'll have to see what's going to happen now in the last 2 days.
Well, look at this massive crowd, and what a great prospect now for the next 3 days of this race. At the moment, it is Michel Dernies, another new leader in the Tour of Britain. Robert Miller keeps his lead in the King of the Mountains, and this is the overall situation. Dernies and Miller locked in the same time, with Fondriest in third place. Well, Robert Miller, a man as good as his word, because this morning he did tell us he was going to attack, and attack he did. And I bet he was surprised when it was Michel Dernies of Belgium who caught him up. It was a shame about the finish here in the city of Sheffield. In fact, the two leaders did cover one more lap than was intended, but they did receive the correct lap count, and they did receive the bell with 1 lap to go. So in the end, the right man won the stage. Dernies in yellow, but on the same time as Robert Miller. Robert Miller now knows he has quite a few riders less to watch as he goes on now to try and defend the title he won 1 year ago. Tomorrow we're on to the flatter roads of Humberside. It'll be another day beneath the broiling sun, and another day, I'm sure, of intensive action. But for now, it's goodbye from Sheffield.